So who's supposed to start? Me?
Me. I'm gonna
Right.
start as soon as we have to start. We're just waiting for a couple of more participants now, and that the YouTube live interaction will start properly, and then we will start with a short introduction.
Okay. Let me just see. Okay.
But I think we can start now. I'm really happy that we can do this webinar today. It's about the next steps after the board certification as young neurosurgeons or young consultants. Before we get started with this webinar, I just wanted the participants to know the housekeeping rules we have here. We do have an chat feature enabled, so if you have any questions, just write it down in the chat menu. But for time's sake, we will discuss the questions after our talks. Well, let's get straight into content with our first speaker. It's Professor Kretschmer from the Neurosurgical Department in Klagenfurt there. He's the chairman there. And also he's vice chair of the ENS Peripheral Nerve Section Board. And he's talking about what it needs to become a good consultant in a clinical sense of way. Please.
So let me share my screen. So, and do you see a slide? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, and you also see the slide?
Yes.
So perfect. Thank you very much for inviting me to give my personal view on strategies for improving your clinical practice. That was the title. So first of all, I think this would be probably better be answered in an interview. But nevertheless, I'm trying to give you 6, and depends on how you count, 7 slides on some things that I think might be considerable if you think about improving your, I would suggest your clinical performance. So of course I have asked myself why I was asked. So I'm not so sure. I can just let you know that I am somebody who put a lot of weight during his training on operative skills. I started my training in South Africa right after medical school because I felt that I could learn more in a shorter amount of time. And apart from the neurosurgical training in Germany, I finished subdiscipline fellowships in nerve and cerebrovascular and in skull base in different countries. Maybe that's why I can talk a little bit about fellowships. So I would like to split this into 4 parts. And those were more or less suggestions. The one is how to build expertise and manual skills. I would like to expand a little bit on what the fellowship can do. Certainly I could talk in length about how to choose a fellowship and how to organize it. And then I was asked from a head of department's view, what are the qualities well sought for a staff member if you stay at the hospital? So let's dive in. This slide doesn't count because it's the conflict of interest slide. And what are my conflicts? Well, as I pointed out, it's just a personal view, and I would prefer to see that not as a lecture. It's just my belief bias for becoming a good neurosurgeon. And this is why I came up with this list, because I think this actually all has to do with becoming a good neurosurgeon and with improving your clinical performance. So of course you need talent, manual skills, but I believe in their development. It never stops. It's quite good if you're interested in our techniques, and the more you know, the more you can use to find individual solutions. I think it might be worthy if there is an interest in complexity and simplification. What I mean by that is you have if it comes to surgery, sometimes you have a complex task. If you learn something new, and you need to be able to deconstruct that in several digestible pieces, it's always good to have a plan. I believe in guided processes and in team rules. I have a strong belief in patient interest, empathy. I think in order to have a fruitful life in that profession, you need to have some passion. That also includes drive, devotion, diligence, meticulosity. I think honesty, openness, and loyalty is very important. And of course, we have endurance, emotional strength, because not everything is nice you will come across. And for that reason, you also need coping strategies and mechanisms. But this is not supposed to sound dreadful. So of course, I always and also believe in training and performing smart. It's not all about the time and the length. In efficient work, in role models, in guidance, in constructive criticism, in process improvement, in selflessness, and in developing serenity without, however, losing the reliability and devotion. And of course, I think delight and hobbies are very important. So all that simply translates in generally a good learning attitude, and in an therefore apt learning environment, self-reflection and continuous development. So you see, my conflicts of interest are actually already building the basis for the rest. So how can you build expertise and manual skills after you already got your license? I think a lot of us feel that it really starts after you have your license. So of course you should go on and develop your learning skills, meaning you listen, you watch, you read, you examine, you ask. It's not just about surgery. If you really want to build up something, everybody is different. So again, I just can tell you what helped me. If you see complex stuff, it really helps to make notes, drawings on procedures, whatever helps you. Personally, I believe in translating surgeries into sequences that can be visualized. And I think it's very important if during your professional life you become more and more able to extract surgical modules. What I mean by that is, okay, I address bone in that location by this. I address blood this way. You can pull several different drawers. I think it's very, it really, cases need to be discussed, if they went good, if they went wrong, to just get input on the pros and cons. So if what you can take by that, it's much more than of course, and of course you all know that, much more than manual skills, but in the end, it's still something manual. And I think that can be approached a little smarter. If you know yourself. Of course, you watch movements, you scrutinize approaches and maneuvers. You can train your hands. You do not need to be in the OR for that. You can work on your positioning. You can work on the patient positioning, but that somehow means you're completely immersed in surgery, just like you would learn any other movement, for example, in sports. And you can do so under supervision. Sometimes you cannot do under supervision, but you should still be able, if you're the only one there, to always extract something. And I believe that it really helps if you can think the matter through and visualize. And of course, these are only some points. This can be expanded much more. In the end, if you want to further your clinical practice, I really think you need to expand your horizon and not just stick with what you have learned. And there are so many opportunities today that maybe sometimes it's more difficult to choose the right ones. And here we are, right at fellowships, or you can also say time spent at other departments in other countries or not. One of my fellowship mentors once told me that what a fellowship can do, it teaches you what you can get away with, which basically means you can also see a hell of a lot of mistakes, and you do not have to experience them yourself. And this is what a fellowship really can do as well. So, of course, it should be there to foster your expertise. It opens the view for the many other options that are surgically available. If you, let's say, came from one surgical school and you see all these other things that work or might not work. And of course, at the same time, you're able to build a network which will be very valuable for your profession, and it hopefully will bring you insights. And in the right sense, it should also foster your self-confidence, because you're exposed more and more with very special pathology. So within a limited time, you see a high frequency of highly selected pathology of your chosen subspecialty, and you will see surgical solutions for that. And in my view, you don't always have to be persuaded that this is the right solution, but you should always think through these solutions. And last but not least, of course, you want to develop your surgical skills. So how would you choose and organize such a thing? I don't think there are generalizations. The most important thing is that you know who you are and what you want. So there's also interest versus skills. What are you good at and what not? What are the opportunities? Might be the decisive thing. What would be a challenge for you? Get all the info about the qualities of a program. You might be very interested in seeing another country, or you might not be able to leave your country. Last but not least, there are all the other things. Funding, very important. Your perception of the host department. It's not all about being famous and being together with an icon in the field, but of course it can help. So it really depends on your goal. You should clear in the beginning, I think, your available time frame, and you should get your chair's opinion and hopefully support very, very early on, and on the right side where we are on the organizational side. And you should not underestimate, at least for some countries, the effort that you have to go through. So for the US and Canada, I would say you need at least a year, because in these countries you need a licensure, and this might be a completely different game if you need a license. And some countries you don't, and then it's easier to organize. If you need a license, you need transcripts. They need to be notified translations, which can be a real pain in the butt and lengthen the time you need for preparation. Then there are things, you might have a family or you might not yet have a family, but you have to clear with your local admin if you, for example, are going on unpaid leave or not. That makes a substantial difference, and something if we are if we are very fixed on this goal, we forget the simple things, insurance stuff and all that. So it also might help to apply for grant, and I definitely think if you leave on your own or with your family, you need an expenditure plan, and of course formally you need an employer permit. And so let's say you've done all that or not, you want to stay in the environment of a hospital. I was asked I should talk a little bit about the qualities well sought. Well, we can answer it very easily. I think reliability is very high up on the list. And on the other hand, every head of department probably wants to have his staff members add something to the department. And in the end, in an attending or consultant position, that also means you have executive functions and leadership tasks. And so this means that you should have no problem and like to or have the capability to lead and regulate, which is to me different from being best buddy to all. It's also different from the opposite, being completely isolated, or from something else, which I would call a dark power person. So, of course, you should help with administrative work and organization. So all of a sudden you might recognize that it's not all about nice surgery, because usually also for the head of the department, surgery is the nicest part. So it's quite good if you learn more and more about managing and develop your coaching skills. Can be really fun to work on strategies and working on the development and shaping of a department. It's quite nice. if a chair can do that with his team members. If you can live real co-working. It's a lot about exchange and real communicative skills. And all those things to me are different from the things you have to add if you're aiming for a chief or head's position. For that, you need to create a lot of paper. You need to fill your CV, and you make mental checks on all those things that are needed. But at the end of the day, this might not necessarily prepare you for the actual later task. So to conclude, I would say you should not work only in your profession, but on your profession. You shape your profession yourself, and that translates into initiative for me. Certainly that is not easy. I think this can counteract disillusion and frustration in the long run. And if you succeed, it might pay back manifold. Thanks. I almost forgot, you're invited for adrenaline and repair. Complication management in neurosurgery. We actually have a full day of performance psychology that tells you from another professional perspective how you can improve your performance. Thank you very much for listening.
And I can really recommend this course. I did it last year, it was really good. Thank you very much for this interesting talk and your thoughts about the clinical career and how to build it up. We're just moving forward to the next speaker, who is Professor David Netuka from Prague. He's chairman at the neurosurgical department at the Charles University. He's founding member of the Young Neurosurgeons and is closely related to ongoing activities, of course, of the ENSM. And he will now focus on academic skills and academic career. Please.
Thank you very much, Marlies. I am happy to participate, and I am so happy that Thomas was the first speaker who covered a lot of very important topics about the career building and academics. To be honest, I thought it's the best way is to share with you my life. And that's the most honest way how to describe how I proceeded in my career, what I have done, which mistakes I did. I considered to bring a lot of pictures about my visits and academic career, but then I decided I share with you my experience. And as Thomas mentioned, I think this topic is very important. But it's better suited for discussion, and we should be honest, and we should not be hiding anything. And of course, I would be happy to show you a lot of funny pictures in the late evening parties in different cities, but that's not the topic. Thomas covered a lot of things, and I decided I will be very honest with you, maybe too honest, how I proceeded in my personal career and which mistakes I did. Of course, I do not want to put my mistakes on the slides, and it's better to be very open. First, I would like to start with a very strict statement. You should never think that your career will develop smoothly. I was thinking about my career, and as a first-year resident, I was very desperate about the training, the atmosphere at the department, because at that time I got in troubles with two important guys in the team who didn't like each other, to be honest, at the time. That was the deputy director and the director. So the worst ever scenario, and not going in too much detail, There were two very different personalities, and the one deputy director didn't like me from the very beginning, and the director got angry with me to a very strange reason. And at that time, I thought, well, am I suited to be a neurosurgeon? Should I proceed in my career at this department? Should I quit with neurosurgery? Should I move somewhere else? It's, as Thomas mentioned, it's about the passion and endurance. And I decided, yes, I will go through. So please do not think that during your training, everything will be smooth and everything will be as expected. So that was my very beginning of my career when I was considering to change the field of my interest. Maybe I'm even too open with you, but I loved neurosurgery, and I decided I will go through the training and I will stay within academic neurosurgery. On the other hand, I have to say I was extremely lucky. At that time, 2002, 2003, we organized several ENS training courses, which were instrumental for me. To be very open with you, I just turned 47 the last week. So for the participants, I am an old guy. For a neurosurgeon, I believe I am still middle-aged. In that time, I was a very young resident, and ENS at that time was not a professional organization as nowadays. And we were doing the courses by ourselves, preparing everything in one of the hotels in Prague. And I got a chance to start very early with the ENS training courses. I was the second year resident. I know that it's not typically the case for most of you, but I was so lucky to step into the courses. And I have to say that ENS training courses changed my life. I got some knowledge, of course, and I learned good people. And on my path, I went through many of them. I will never forget Johannes Schramm showing the hemispherotomies, which I never have understood properly because I'm not doing the pediatric epilepsy surgery, but it was something very special. But he was at that time already not elderly, but senior guy. But at that time, I learned Carlos Schaller, our past president, and he opened my eyes, to be honest. And we had a long discussion, sometimes till early morning. But also he gave me an opportunity to visit Bonn department at the time. I believe you know some names from the Bonn. At that time, Johannes Schramm was the chief. When I first visited Bonn, Bernhard Meyer was still the deputy director or leitende Oberarzt. Carlos Schaller was the very senior consultant. Matthias Simon was there, and Florian Ringler was a younger resident. And at that time, I learned about the very well-structured and organized neurosurgery in Germany. And I will never forget this experience in my life, and it changed a lot. Of course, I thought I saw how the epilepsy cases are done and AVMs, but that's not the message. But I think I thought the structure, organization, and academic path, writing the projects, writing the papers, and preparing the presentations. That's the reason why I decided to be so personal and to skip some PowerPoint slides, because I think this is personal. Further on, I had a chance to go back and forth to Bonn as a young resident, going by car over the night from Prague. It was for 7 hours drive, and of course at the time I didn't have money to fly. That was Bonn. That was the beginning of my career, and I decided I have to proceed in my PhD studies. And that was 2003, and I changed the topic of the PhD study at that time, because I realized that the topic which I chose and I was given partially was not strong enough. and I decided I will do it as fast as possible. So in 2005, I finished my PhD studies, and I was looking forward to my senior resident years. And I was considering how to proceed in my career. And I think it's very important to everybody, for everybody who is following this webinar, to decide which direction you want to go. And there are some drawbacks of any decision, but I, on purpose, decided I want to develop endoscopic skull-based procedures at our department. Of course, always you need to have a friend or colleague. And I was so lucky, I had a guy who is like 4 years senior to me, who was doing the microscopic pituitary adenomas at that time. And we decided we will change the endoscopy and introduce endoscopy to our department. And we started to visit the Department of Forensic Medicine at that time to have a look what is the endoscope and how to insert it into the nose. And of course, the aim was not only the clinical practice, but the aim was also the academic practice. And we were going back and forth in the afternoon to the Department of Forensic Medicine. And one morning, during one morning conference, I was watching my colleague, my collaborator, and he was just losing his skin from the face. And I told him, "You look really strange." And he told me, "Well, you are the same." And we, as a young guys, forgot to turn off the ultraviolet lights at the unit or Department of Forensic Medicine. So we got sunburned or burnt from these lights when we were trying to insert the endoscope through the nose. That was a very beginning of our endoscopic career. And then we proceeded to Naples, to Paolo Capabianca and Luigi Cavallo. It was lovely. We spent a lot of time. And what we learned, you have to analyze your results. And I will never forget the chance to go through their surgical libraries, to watch their videos and to analyze their results. And that was another game changer for me, to store all the videos and to have an opportunity to go back and to analyze what was done. Luigi Cavallo was a great guy who was teaching us, but then we decided, let's proceed to US, and we decided to go to Pittsburgh at time when Amir Kassam was the leading person in endoscopic skull-based surgery in Pittsburgh. We visited several courses, and he was a very mentally influential guy at the time, and he showed us the cases which I would never dare to do endoscopically, and sometimes I thought it's not reasonable. But I've been there 3 times, altogether 2.5 months, so not a long fellowship, but I have to say I learned a lot, but I also learned what not to do, to be honest. So then in Pittsburgh, some changes took place, and we are still in good contact with Paul Gardner and the other guys. And these are the mentors. And then going back to academics. So I think it's very important to pick one field in neurosurgery which is close to your heart, and that was endoscopic skull-based. But of course, I decided I want to be academic neurosurgeon, and then you need to have the colleagues, role models, and the persons you trust in. And of course, you can have these persons in your country. If you are in a big country, of course, you can find a lot of them. I'm coming from a small country. Then the best way is to have European perspective and European friends. And I will not go into mentioning of dozens of European friends, but I decided I will systematically visit their departments and I want to see how they organize not only the clinical but academic practice. So I could mention Peter Raikotzi in Berlin, Uli Sure in Essen, Claudius Tome in Innsbruck, Andreas Rabe in Bern, and I could go on and on. And to be honest, speaking about my perspective, I've never been for a long fellowship, like 1 year or 2 years, but I have visited so many departments in Europe. I would think at least 25, and I thought different approaches to clinical and academic career. So from my perspective, I would propose you to go for a focused visit. If you want to learn some procedure, go to the department where it's done frequently and see how it's done and organized. I still like to go to see my friends and colleagues in US, and I have been to US departments as observer for 10 times in my career. So I think it's very important to build your academic career according to the European perspective, and also to see what is happening in the US. And not to speak too long, I believe when I became a young consultant, I decided I will build my academic practice as well. And I decided I want to coordinate my practice with the other departments in Czech Republic, small country. And my ideas and wishes would be always higher, but we achieved several papers on a national level, which is very important. And then I succeeded to become the chairman when I was 44. And at the time I was running as a deputy director for 5 years. And I thought I learned everything from my period as a deputy chief. And please believe me, it's not true. As soon as you will become a director, chairman, whatever you call the name of the chairmanship, it will be different. And it's about the team, coordinating the team, and which one aspect I would like to stress is be aware that you can devote your time to your department, to your surgeries, to your team. But if you have one poisoning element in your team, this may destroy the whole department. So always keep an eye how your colleagues are working. And as a last remark, and I'm happy for the discussion, of course, as a chairman, what I like the most is doing the surgeries. Today, I had a nice precallosal aneurysm and tuberculum meningioma, 2 nice cases. And when I was young guy, I really wanted to do these cases, of course, and I was envying my older guys. But I have to say, this is the nicest part of being the chairman. The rest is a lot about the paperwork, team, administrative meetings. And I can tell you, you will spend, if you go this direction, and I'm happy I did this way, you will spend a lot of time doing all these administrative work. So in my team, I believe I balanced well, but be aware that if there is just one poisoning element in the team, this may ruin your department. Thank you very much for listening to me and showing you my life, and I'm happy for any questions.
I'm really, really happy and honored of your honesty. It's really much needed in the community, I guess. The question we will answer after the talks. I'm just happy to announce now Dr. Babali. He could join us from Phoenix now, but he originally opened up a private practice right after his board certification, and he's now talking a bit about that.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? No.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Let me try to share my screen and let's see if we can do it. So, can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, and let's try this. Okay. So I want to start to thank you, the European Association, for having me today. That's, to me, it's a very important topic because at the end of my residency, I was not so sure about my future, and I felt myself not well prepared to it, even though I thought during my 6 years of residency, at least I tried to build my my career. But however, as I told you, I felt that not well prepared. What I learned in the second 2 years was that you can actually be prepared for what's next if you have some knowledges in advance. And I think one of the first, even probably the most important, is somewhere, somehow, you have to leave your comfort zone, because probably at the end of the residency, you will not end up to work where you did your residency. So it's important, or at least was important to me, to bear in mind that probably you will have to leave your hometown, or anyway, the place that you where you lived for 6 years. So using the the Lord of the Rings and as metaphor, you have to leave your shire. And to do that, I think one of the most important thing that you can do is trying to do that before the end of your residency. I've been lucky enough during my residency because I have a chance to travel a lot. So I've been in many different places in Europe and outside Europe. And I remember that one of the first thing that one of my mentor told me, Antonio Bernardo, is, look, at the end of the day, when you have to decide about your future, it's everything about the connection that you made, during your residency. And that's something that at that time, when he told me, I didn't realize how true that it was. But now, believe me, I can tell you it's very true. And the other thing that traveling during your residency help you with is that probably at your residency, you will not be able to to experience all the neurosurgical procedure from spine to brain to PEDs. And so traveling means also getting experience, and if you're lucky, some hands-on on something that during your residency, probably you haven't not experienced yet. So that's the first thing to do when you're resident. When you're still resident, travel, meet people, establish connections. So that's a small rather diagram that I did when I had to decide my future. And it's something that came out from part of my experience and from some questions that I asked to older or even younger colleague, because there are, to me, 3 types of hospital that can apply at most part of the world. So the academic hospitals, the not teaching hospitals, and the private practice. So I tried to analyze them under 5 points of view. The first one, which is strictly connected to the ability and the skills that you got during your residency, is the autonomy required in OR and outside OR to get the job done. So the thing is, I'm outside my residency. Where can I go? But most important, what I need to do and what I need to know to do. So the thing is, in most of the academic centers and not teaching hospitals, which are generally bigger centers, tertiary centers, so you are actually probably in a group of people with like different year of training, different experiences. Maybe you're part of 10 people group. So I don't think, and that's something that asking or to other colleagues, something that actually I found many times, it's not so important how many things you are able to do by your own. Because it's supposed, you're going to join the group as the youngest member. So probably you will have many people ahead of you that are more expert, and they can help you with the procedure, once again, outside and inside the OR. In the private practice, that's not the game. Because if you work in a private practice, you have to deliver. You have to do surgeries. If you see a patient in your clinic and you discuss surgery, you have to do that surgery. It's not, and it's you. It's not someone else. Yeah, you can be helped, but basically you can't rely on help from anyone else. And that's something that you should consider when you are about to decide what you're going to do. The second thing is the volume of surgery that you can do per year, especially in the first year. Because once again, academic centers and not teaching hospitals generally are bigger centers, even though the biggest in your city. So the thing is, first of all, they got an emergency room. An emergency room means a lot of patients that coming in every day. So, you can build your own practice, at least in the very first year, without, I'd say, any effort. Just show up in the hospital, make your shift, make the consultations, and that's it. You are your R full for the next week. That's not true for private practice, because in private practice, no one knows you, especially if you're a young surgeon. And believe me, in private practice, it doesn't care how many meta-analysis, systematic review, how many case reports you published. Patients actually don't know that. So that's something else you have to consider. Of course, the amount of research that you can do in these 3 different hospitals is not the same, because of course academic centers are built to publish along with delivering health services. So the private practice and the non-teaching hospitals are behind academic centers in terms of publications per year. Of course, that's something that at the end of the day, it's up to you, because, if you want to do, and if you're able to do meta-analysis and systematic review, even though you are in private practice, you can still publish, because you actually don't need to have a huge database of patients. But of course, in academic centers and non-teaching hospital, you will end up with a lot of patients with different pathologies. So it's going to be much easier to build your research curriculum. The fourth aspect that I evaluated at the time was the career perspectives. And I'd say after 2.5 years in private practice, I could say that this radar diagram is quite accurate on that. Because actually in private practice, there is no chance for career improvement. I mean, you are a surgeon, a neurosurgeon that is able to do this and that, but there's no career. You're not going to end up to be, vice director and director and professor, full professor, associate professor. There's not such a thing. In private practice, you are the surgeon that is able to do this and that, and that's it. And it's something that I think you should consider, because of course, as neurosurgeons, I can bet most of us are ambitious people. So, working in a place where you know for sure that you're gonna have the same role for life, it's something that maybe someone couldn't be good on. The fifth aspect, as the English said last but not least, is the quality of life. So look, with quality of life, I mean that in the academic centers and non-teaching hospitals, especially because they have the ER, anyone, knows that you have to do long shift, night shift, weekend shift. In private practice, there's nothing of it. You are owner of your time, so you can do whatever you like. Of course, your earning, you're going to be different if you work two days per week, but still you're free. So that's something that, for example, for me, turned out to be the most important part of the private practice, because while I was working as private neurosurgeon, I was preparing the United States medical license examination. And actually, being a private surgeon gave me a lot of free time to study. And once again, it's something that if you know in advance, it can help you to choose in between these three centers. So let's say that you choose what someone could say, could tell the dark side. So you choose private practice. So there are some things that I think it's important to know before considering private practice. Even though you're sure that you know everything about private practice, let me tell you three things. So that's the private clinic where I worked for 2 years and a half. It's called the IFCA. It's the biggest private practice in Florence, in my city in Italy, and actually it's a very good place where to work. Regardless the physical place where you work, there are, to me, three things that you have to consider. So first of all, when you work as private surgeon, 85% of your practice will be spine practice. That's something you have to consider, because I can bet most of us study neurosurgery to be a brain surgeon. Well, that's not something you can easily do in private practice, especially if you're young neurosurgeons, because I think there are many reasons of it. Two most important are trust. Basically, it's hard to have the trust of your colleague and of your employer if you're a young neurosurgeon and want to do brain surgery. The second aspect is not all the private practice places got all the stuff that are needed to practice brain surgery, a safe brain surgery. Because, first of all, you need the ICU at very least. And not all the private practice got an ICU. And second, you need anesthesiologists that are, willing, that are, happy to share the long surgery that generally the brain surgery asks. And it's not easy to find, believe me. So when you approach private practice and you are someone that is very focused on brain surgery, as actually I was, and I still am, you have to know that probably you're not going to and to do like 3-4 skull-based meningiomas per week, and that's a fact. The second fact is you have to be patient, because private practice, it's something that you have to build from scratch. You have to build by your own. No one is going to help you probably. So the very first month, and believe me, that's something that happened to me, your clinic is going to be empty. No patient, no surgeries. And this is something that I asked to many other colleagues that work on private practice, and it's something that you can find that happen to everyone. Because, you know, that's how it works. That's how it works, as simple as it is. Because you are young, no one knows you. And once again, it's not important how many articles you published, because, you know, the patient that coming from the suburbs of your city, they are not interested at your, scientific accomplishment, your fellowships, your titles. They are just interested in if you are the guy that can fix their problem or not. That's it. And the third aspect of the private practice, I'd say once again, last but not least, it's the legal aspect. Because when you work on an academic and non-teaching hospital, you have a legal apparatus, a legal background that actually is going to protect you way more than what happened when you're a freelancer, when you work on private practice. And that's something that is very important. And I think I found that no one is talking about that. That's why, once again, I want to say, be prepared to have a very good insurance, because you're gonna need it. The quantity of legal issues in the private practice, it's way bigger than what happened in the public places. So the thing of the private practice is how I can get into the private practice. There are mainly two ways. The first way is by your connections. That's why I started my talk with the connections. Because if you know a guy that knows a guy that is working on a private practice and they actually need help, that's probably the best and the quickest way to get into the private practice. The other way, and believe me, I had colleagues that have been recruited that way, is using the social network, especially LinkedIn. You can imagine how many agencies are in LinkedIn that are actually looking for private surgeons, even private neurosurgeons. So it's something that, especially if you are in between your residency and the end of residency and you're starting of your practice as attending, it's something you can use. It's very important. One advice that I can give you when you are in talk for your private practice, you have to be sure that you're gonna be a freelancer. Because as you know, my radar diagram showed before, probably the most important positive aspect of the private practice is that you're gonna end up with a lot of free time. But that's possible only if you're going to work as freelancer. Because some private clinic actually, they try to hire you as employer. So with shift, with night shift and stuff like that, which is something that I recommend you to avoid, because you're gonna lose probably the most important advantage of your practice. That is doing your own surgeries with your young colleagues. So you'll end up in private practice and that's it. Actually, no, because my message is the last step couldn't be not the last one. Because, you know, you can every time come back to the step one. And once again, leave your comfort zone and go in where you think you might be happier or more useful if you want. For example, I just left my my place for the United States. I'm right now in Phoenix, here in Banner, so doing a research fellowship. So believe me, the step that you think is the last, it's probably not the last. One bonus and last slide. If you are considering the United States as your future place to be, you have to consider two main aspects. The first one, you have to build your own foundations. You have to be highly motivated. Let me say again, highly motivated, because it's a very long journey. It's a very long journey and it costs. It costs a lot in terms of both energies and money. Because to do that, someone already talked about that a little bit, you have to get at least your medical license again, and that costs thousands of dollars. And you have to do fellowships, both research fellowships and clinical fellowships. And once again, most of them, in particular research fellowship, the clinical fellowship are paid, research fellowship are not paid. So be prepared and have savings, otherwise it can't work. On these foundations, you're gonna build your pathway to the US. And the pathway is made by 5 different steps. These steps, I mean, the test that you need to get your medical license are 3: step 1, step 2, and step 3. The research fellowships, the clinical fellowships, and the most important thing, if you're considering a career in the US, is you have to have amazing and supportive mentors. Because without mentors, you cannot succeed in this pathway. All considering that, you have to be lucky. Because even though with high scores and your test with amazing mentors, with very good fellowships, both research fellowship and clinical fellowships, you have to be lucky. Because being a surgeon, being a doctor, being a surgeon, and being a neurosurgeon in the US, it's probably the most competitive thing that you will never do in your life. So my 2 cents is, if you want to do it, do it. I'm doing it right now. I'm happy, even though I'm not done yet. But be prepared that it's a very long and exhausting journey. So what are the take-home messages for my talk? I call the 3 A's. So the first A is anticipation. As I told you, be prepared. Start to prepare your after fellowship before the ending of your fellowship. The second A is ask for help to anyone you can, colleagues, friends. That's why the connections are important, not because of themselves, but because they are gonna help you in choosing your path. And third is awareness, because you have to be prepared that even though you're thinking and you thought that residency was hard, doing and working as attending, especially in private practice, can be easy, but could be hard if you're not well prepared. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Giovanni. We just go forward to our next speaker, who is Professor Stummer. He's head of the Institute for Management and Economics in Healthcare at the private university in Halle in Austria, and he's talking about career paths for physicians between careers, shocks, and sustainability.
Yeah, thank you very much, Marlies. And when you invited me, I really asked, okay, am I the right person to be into a webinar of neurosurgery? And I still am the exotic foreigner, I think, in here. The thing when let me share the slides, just a little bit about career, sustainability of career, and what we know about career in general for medicine or for neurosurgery, except from the difficult things. Okay, what skills do you need to have to become a good surgeon or something like that? What do we know about career? And this is not very much. Let me start a little bit with just a way when we were young, or probably 30 years before, what we thought about a career would be. We always thought it's just a straight line going straight ahead and following a career. But probably nowadays and probably in all our professions, as we see, we realize it's more a little bit like that. And what does this mean? What do we know? There's a little bit about management and economics and career in healthcare literature, or in management and economics literature in healthcare. And traditionally, we really were talking about gymnasts. So we really were talking about going up the ladder, staying in his or her own field and getting better in the own area, and then at the end of the day become head of an institute or a clinical director or a head physician or something like that. What we see recently, there are really little evidence about medicine in general and neurosurgery in particular. What I found in literature is, okay, there is a little bit of decreasing interest in a research career in nearly all medical disciplines we have. This is not really a very good study, but it suggests it decreases a little bit. We showed also there is a little bit less interest than 20 years ago in becoming a head physician. This is a little bit more true for women, but it's also true for men. This changes a little bit. And as you know, okay, in the fields of neurosurgery, there are gender differences or something like that. It shouldn't be nothing new for us, for you. As we heard about academic careers and research careers also in the talks before, yes, we see the same. It's not really special to medicine, but we see it also in medicine and neurosurgery. The most crucial things we have becoming a good researcher, become an established researcher and a notified researcher. For research, it's networks. So therefore, especially we lose ties, which means that you know many people a little and not few people very good. So it's really having a good network, but having quite a loose network. And this is also a little bit to Giovanni. Quality of life is one of the things we should consider of when we were talking about in our field of research, when we were talking about careers. It's a very new concept and an integrative concept. We talk about sustainable careers. What is a career? When is a career to be sustainable, and what do we have to look at? And we have time, we have a context, which is work group, nation, occupation, the thing we have. And sure, we have the person. So what do we mean? What do we need? And how do we react in context and time? And the indicator if a career is sustainable, we see normally in some indicators being healthy, sure. Only if you stay, we know that work-related illnesses normally are roughly 30%. So to stay happy in the job, to stay healthy in the job, and still to be productive, as to have some performance and something like that. I looked for studies in medicine about sustainable career. I looked for studies also in neurosurgery, but I even didn't find one in medicine. Just to show you one, how we've done it. We've done a study in nursing. And for example, as what we see here, as Giovanni talked about night shift and something like that, we see the same thing, especially in nursing, that the life and the career stages do not fit. Hospitals normally are quite family friendly when you have children, but hospitals are not life friendly when, for example, you at the moment want to do something different than a normal thing, what you have here. As I told you, there is actually no study in medicine nor in neurosurgery. If one of you is interested in doing a study on sustainable career in some medical disciplines or subdisciplines, please feel free to contact me. We're always interested in doing research with different health professionals. Sometimes career shocks happen. So when everything goes wrong, or something we really did not expect happened. Some of us had those career shocks in some events related with the pandemics, or with the resources in hospitals, or with some employment opportunities, or when a hospital closes. And this also influences careers normally. And what we have to think of, yes, I don't think you choose neurosurgery if you just want to have a comfort zone. Yeah, this is normally a discipline you choose when you want to do something, when you want to achieve something. However, this is an Austrian commentary. I didn't find anything about neurosurgery. This is about medicine in general. The classical genius, the clear straight, for young physicians, for training physicians, this does not really seem to be really attractive until now. So to sum it up, how to make it sustainable. So we have to look at the context. You talked about the changes, events, the actively and the proactively. What happens? You have to have luck, but you have to be proactive. And you also have to think about indicators. How long can you do a job? Do you stay healthy in it? How satisfied are you with it? And at least to be good in a job and to be sustainable, to be productive. And we see a little bit the genius within the subdiscipline are still dominant. but also there's little research done in this area. But what I've seen, career seems to be a little bit, as Jos Ackermans had in his slides for his presentation I borrowed from. So, and now, if in case of any contact, something you find here in the slide, my contact slide, and some advertisement for some programs we have at our university. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you all of the speakers. I'm really, really happy we did this topic today. It's really interesting. It's really good that all of you are very honest in all of your talks. That's really something which is not quite common nowadays, I think. There is a red line somehow in all of the talks, and I think that's having like a community, having a lot of connections and having some mentors. So my question to the panel is, are there any strategies to academic or clinical neurosurgeons to find a suitable mentor? Is there a way to find one? What do you think?
So from my perspective, I would highly recommend to be active and present at the European level, because in my experience, my best mentors came from Europe, I have to say. So these guys are very honest in many cases, if they are not your competitors, of course, and they can show you also their mistakes. And they will show you the way how to proceed. So I would really stress the European perspective for building the career. I love my friends from US, but I mostly learn about the successes only of themselves, by they rarely disclose their mistakes. So I can again repeat my friends throughout Europe. And these guys opened my mind, not only in neurosurgery, but also in academic neurosurgery, and they showed me how to proceed. So I believe that our playground is Europe. And once more, I love to go to US. Just last month, I was in LA, but we are socially and psychologically slightly different. And I would propose everybody to travel a lot within Europe. That's my proposal.
Please go ahead.
May I add something? I think the best way to get a mentor is sending hundreds of emails and trying hundreds of contacts by Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever, and of course being present in conferences, seminars, webinars, because unless you have during residency a boss that actually is going to help you with his or her own connections, you have to build by your own. So apart from the thing inside, outside Europe, which to me it's something that is subjective. Because, for example, if you're able to get, I'd say, a fellowship in some countries, let's call them low-income countries, you will end up probably to do thousands of hands-on, which are gonna result in a very huge clinical experience. So it's generally up to what you're looking for. But if we talk about mentors, unless someone in your residency school will be your mentor, which is not something that so easy, or that's something that happens every time, you have to build the thing by your own. And there's only one way: create your connections. But we are lucky today because 20 years ago, the social networking wasn't that developed, even though we already had the web. But now it's so easy to get in touch with anyone, even with, you know, the one that we think are, you know, the top shot of our specialty. They have Twitter, they have LinkedIn, they have the emails. Just get in touch with them and you'll see. And start from something. You have to start from something. So that's for the mentors, I'm saying. I don't know if you have any different experience, guys, but that's the way I found more useful. Not only for me, because here in Phoenix, but not only Phoenix, we are like full of young neurosurgeons, and most of them they found their way through social networks, even email or LinkedIn or whatever.
And what about the mentorships or mentors and mentees in the clinical pathway, Professor Kretschmer? What do you think about that? Should there be a one-to-one, or should every consultant have one resident billing, or I don't know, somehow?
Well, there's a big difference between should and reality. All the points made are very well made. For me, the line is, you got to know yourself. And as simple as it sounds, I meet a lot of people who don't know themselves that good. This is number one. The number two is communication. It's very rare. I hope some more chairs would do that, but it's very rare that if you are unexperienced and your supervisor or head, whatever, recognizes you have a special talent and tells you you should follow that path. Very rare. So most of the time, you should, I think, know what you want, which direction, and maybe then seek advice, because sometimes it might not be a good fit, you know. Someone mentioned the dreams of the beginning. Everybody wants to clip aneurysms. Well, what is the reality today? Okay. And sometimes even if there would be the choice, you might not have the talent, which does not mean you're a bad neurosurgeon, but maybe that's not your field. It's completely different if you enter a field where shit comes to shove within seconds. Whether you enter a field where you do not have that high risk, but need a lot of planning and calculation. And I see a lot of different personalities. So to me, it's a lot of initiative. It's always luck. What came through, it's always luck. And it's always persistency. You very hardly you succeed with the first try or first attempt. And I mean, the best things I received were those who everybody said, no, that's not good, that's not probably not very likely, blah blah. But those were the most challenging, and I like that. So and everybody is different, but I think what is sometimes needed is more social and emotional intelligence, because it's one thing if you have a nice catalog or come from a very reputable department, or if you have a lot of skills. And so it's just, you have to try. I would not be so harsh with the country like David has been, because I really traveled a lot with my profession. I really traveled a lot, but it was always, the beginning was not even in neurosurgery. I began because I was sick and tired of the German way. And so that's why I went. It's not to talk about me, I just want to give you an example. I decided, okay, I know what I want to learn, which is something manual, and I'm not going to answer any more multiple choice questions. I make the South African exam, I go to South Africa. So I entered trauma and surgery and blah, blah, blah. But that helped me tremendously with all the letter in neurosurgery. And this is just my personal way, but I still relate to the period of time. I did not even have a mentor by that time. The university was not helpful at all. They asked me if I could help them with contacts afterwards. And that was a time where you did not have TikTok, LinkedIn. It was very simple. I went in the library and just looked in journals for addresses of hospitals and wrote tons of letters. One letter came back, positioning open. I did not know that that guy was actually shot. And I would not have cared. But that was the beginning. And what it builds is also self-confidence. And if you follow that path, you get to know more and more people, you know, and they're different. And some of them turn out to be extremely, extremely good mentors. Sometimes you meet them, coincidence. So that was a long answer, and not to the question you asked, Marlis. So I give you the answer, trying to give a short answer to actually the question you asked. I think, yes, it should be more within the department as well. Basically, I don't, but that's only my belief, I don't think it's necessary to recruit tons of young neurosurgeons that are not apt for the profession, but have a higher level and deliver more for these very talented people, because it's a very long way and it's a very special profession. And so it's my belief within the mother department, yes, there should be mentors and mentees. I don't think it will really function if these two people don't like each other. You can say, yeah, it's only professional, blah, blah. Anyway, just my belief. I don't think it will work if these two people don't like each other. You need to appreciate something in the other person. And if you do that, it can be a very nice relationship, because guess what? The nice thing is the mentor always learns from the mentee. So this is something mutual. But I also think, you know, we really need to talk more about things. And sometimes it's actually quite hard to tell somebody, you know, I know about your wishes, but if you ask me, I do not think you're the right person for that. And also vice versa. If you see somebody who does not even know that he's extremely skilled in whatever, this does not only apply for neurosurgery, it's just a very strenuous field, I think. You should point it out to the person and help him. And if you yourself have a network, then you can lift him on a pony first and maybe later on a horse. So yes, I believe in that, but do I see that in a lot of university departments? No, but for me personally, that's another discussion, because I think we run this business in a very ancient style that is not what we need in these modern times. So it's
I
not
see everyone nodding, so yeah. Yeah, that's how it is.
Okay, so
Yeah.
these are my comments.
So about this webinar was, to me, and I think also for others, it was refreshing. So honesty, it's badly needed. We need to talk about what's the reality after the board, and also about what is our role. So our role is not just clipping aneurysms or fixing spines. It's way much more than this. And if we can mentee people into who they will be as neurosurgeons, so in their roles, I think that's our job as mentors. I tend to agree with the fact that a bad mentor that's just worse. I think that it makes you fare worse in your life. But if you rotate mentors, like the couple of mentor-mentee in the university, maybe it can teach both the parts to work together, even if you dislike each other, like 6 months like that. So this is real life. You will work with people you don't like, deal with it, be an adult. So, and this is something that I think we should much insist on. When we have to find mentors, another strategy might be using the network of young neurosurgeons. So talk to people that are a little bit older than you. So this is for spectators. So you don't need just to shot at the top. It's very, very well. Not maybe they're very busy as well, but the network the ENS Young Neurosurgeons is establishing is for this, for research, for networking, for mentorship, and to help people like move around with much more confidence that I myself had 5 years ago. So this is, I loved this webinar because it's something that we need to talk about very much. It's a massive thank you to all the speakers for your input.
Definitely. So there's another topic, but it's still an open question in the audience, and it's about the gender-specific discrimination during residency and after that, and how to overcome such traps and still build a neurosurgical career, which we can discuss here, I guess. What do you think, Laura? You're a woman, you know. I'm a woman. Do we feel under any discrimination nowadays? I don't know. I don't, actually.
It depends on which level. It doesn't have to be open discrimination to be a career path that still nods in a nicer way to guys. There are issues that need to be addressed on a single department level, like if you find that issues that it's ongoing ill behaviors or more parental issues that need to be addressed. Some departments are still new to this, especially in Europe, but this is changing too. So I believe that we are making this change happening in our generation. So Marius, you're already younger than me. So this is gonna be, I believe, already different from you, and also changes a lot between countries. I assume as well. So it depends also on this. But the topic is real, and we need to talk about it in a fresh way, in an honest way, without the judgment that it seems to carry with it. It is there. Let's fix it. I don't think it's so much more difficult than fixing a glioma or whatever. Like we do hard things. This should not be harder than that.
I think so too.
Me too. And it's true that it varies between countries. Because, for example, I'm a fellow now in Budapest, in Hungary, at the National Institute of Neurosurgery, and I'm the only female neurosurgeon here. I was shocked when I got here. So yeah, it's still happening in some places, but we're not well represented. I think we deserve a whole webinar to discuss this, but I agree with everything Laura said. So nothing to add besides this, that there are still places where we're underrepresented.
Come on, every male in this discussion can only burn himself right now.
That's why everyone is so quiet right now.
No, absolutely. This is the whole point. No. This is the whole point. This is where the change needs to begin, by like we need to acknowledge these things. that can be little or not little, but I think that nobody needs to bury themselves. So we need to get in the open.
I would like to have a personal comment. When I was a young resident, yes, that was the case in Czech Republic, that there was underrepresentation of females among young neurosurgeons. When I was a young consultant, it got better. And I have to say, since I became a chairman of the biggest neurosurgery in Czech Republic, I almost only hire the women, and we have more than half of women in our training program. We have 4 consultants, and I think for our department this question is done. And I think you know, there are differences in different countries, but I believe that in Czech Republic this problem was solved.
Marlies, I would also like to make a comment on this, because I agree with you. The situation is changing. Even in my experience, actually, we have more than half residents that are women, and that is completely different as compared to a few years ago. Also, I feel lucky because in my departments, I have the only a full professor of neurosurgery of Italy. So I'm very lucky in my departments. I can account with a lot of young and senior female neurosurgeons. So I don't think now, today, we can talk about discrimination.
Shall I add something?
Yeah.
My deputy head is female.
We're saying like it's a dirty secret.
But mine knows.
Once again?
My deputy head is also female.
Well done. Well, I think if there are no burning questions right now, I'm really happy we did this today. It was really nice to talk to all of you. I'm loving actually the honesty, and that's really needed. But I'm still closing the webinar now. I think we discussed a lot and we heard a lot, and we will see hopefully the participants in the next webinar in autumn this year. Thank you very much.
Sure, and also in Madrid next week.
And in Madrid next week, yes, of course.
And see you this week in Prague on Global Spine.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.